Hello everyone, welcome back to Green Chat. We're going to take a closer look at an upcoming MMO, Pantheon Rise of Fallen. My name is Cleeze, and let's get started. Alright guys, and welcome back to another episode of Green Chat. This is kind of going on for a while here, who would have thought? So today we got some questions from you guys as usual. If you're new to Green Chat, this is a place where you guys can ask me questions. I'll give you my opinion, hopefully formulate your own on the upcoming MMO, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. So if you have any questions for me, dump them in the comments, shoot a private message, stuff like that, no big deal. I also cover on points of interest, stuff like that I think is pertinent or important to the game's development. And if you're planning on or interested in playing Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, it'd be good to know these little things. So today we're going to kick it off with some questions from Crimson, knock through the rest of those. Fragile's got a few more, and then we have some more from you guys. There's just so many questions, so we'll see how far we get and rock and roll. Do it like it's a thing. All right, so first up, we have a question from Crimson. Crimson's asking me, do you see some race combinations being more viable than others? Example, Ogre Warrior being the best race for the class, or Gnome Wizard being the best for the class. How do you feel about this if it were to be a thing? So honestly, I do see this being a thing. Examples were great, Ogre Warrior, Gnome Wizard, bam. The way, how much better are they actually going to be? Probably not that crazy. Where the way it plays out on paper is maybe like 3 to 2% potentially better than other races, and some races being even worse, so maybe the gap will be a total of 5% between the worst race to the best race for the warrior class, for example. Does that really translate super effectively to the game? Probably, maybe a little bit for a lot of min-maxers, but I wouldn't expect to see like all the top tier guilds utilizing Ogre Warriors exclusively, or you getting denied a position or something like that because of your race, depending on your class combination. But I think it's cool. I would expect to see it in Pantheon, so if you are a min-maxer, definitely keep your eyes out, are on this type of stuff as the game develops for what race combination class you want to be. But yeah, I think it's a really cool thing, matches the lore, and it's nifty. It's a nifty little nifty thing. I think it's cool. This is kind of a futuristic question, but Crimson is asking me, how long after launch do you see the next expansion coming out, if that is a thing, and why? So they will 100% have expansions guaranteed, because that's the trend of MMOs right now. Not to say that Pantheon is folding itself in the exact trend, as with they are not. They are making a more traditional MMO, but I would expect to see the next expansion when it's ready for them. The way they're releasing Pantheon right now, and how long it takes you to level in this game, or how long it will take, is going to be much longer. There'll be much more content spread out. I don't see them doing mini patches, because those are just like, those really are kind of lame in my opinion. Mini patches, you guys might love them, but they're just kind of like, just give me a big patch. I'll do it. Give me something to do with the current thing. Don't make me sit around waiting for patches all day. But not like that. Like, don't make me wait. I hate you. It doesn't really. It's just not my style. So I would expect to see the next expansion whenever they're ready to do it, and that would probably be around 2 years after Pantheon goes live, because they've got to work out all the kinks in Pantheon. There's gonna be plenty of them. Every MMO has them. They have to work out their, their server loads and stuff. How many shards they need. How many this and that. How many staff they need to handle. Just managing us as the player base and stuff like that. So that is what I think. So I would expect at least 2 years after the initial release. Following that, who knows? I think that's going to be kind of a play-by-ear thing, and whatever really works with the community and the world, because there's those two things at play. So Crimson is asking, using other games as an example, what would you like to see in the first expansion or expect to see? On the other hand, what do you not see coming out until the first expansion? So this is kind of, the game's not even out yet, but hey, we know what? Green Chat, questions and opinions, whatever. So using other games as an example, what do I like to see, or what do I expect to see is the first expansion? Probably something to do with the shift in power in the world. So when the game comes out, there's going to be a presence in the world, and there's going to be multiple presences there, but something might not be really overreaching or overarching as a threat, but there'll be something brewing, kind of like Lord of the Rings, like Zaron in the weird volcano area, and there'll be a reason to go there, and you'll get the best loot there. You'll probably find the biggest challenges there, and you'll have to thwart that situation to probably help something out, save something from somebody. I mean, that's just, you know, adventure games in general. There's some looming threat that we have to go and own and make it a thing. Now, what would be cool, or as an example of something that we might see in a future expansion, would be kind of neat, is they have a lot of material they can use. They have a lot of world, obviously, but what's pretty cool is each race came from a different area. And if we could maybe go into like those areas that they came from, maybe. That sounds kind of stupid because a lot of those areas are probably like wrecked or destroyed, at least with the lore of this place. But if they find a way to port back, and then you can kind of see like the origin of some of these races more in detail, or with zones and stuff, or like maybe you're in a dream or something, to continue with this. On the other hand, what do you not see coming out until the first expansion? Probably more classes. I know Brad's kind of mentioned he's thinking about putting more classes in the game instead of subclasses in the game. At least I think he's mentioned this, but I would expect more classes that come out in the future expansions. So hopefully that answers that question, and let's move on. So next up, we have a question from Fragile. Fragile's asking, a few different times they've stated that they want the average person to join in a group and be able to feel the sense of accomplishment within 2-ish hours time frame. After viewing the streams, I don't see how they could clear down a camp, get some experience, then clear back all within 2 hours. They didn't even really get it done well, and they're all devs with hacks. Good question. So first, let me start with this. I think the devs, or those live streams, have a few things working against them. One is they're halfway engaged in the actual game. They're more worried about answering their stream questions, engaging us in those streams, also detailing or giving example to certain aspects of the game that they're trying to really showcase to us. And the third thing is a lot of those people in the group have never played the game before, and that will really hinder you, especially as a team goes, a team-based game, if somebody's jumping in for the very first time. So they're kind of learning the ropes, and that's just going to make you not perform as well and make you move slower and stuff like that. It also will affect your team composition as far as like how well you work together as a team and stuff like that. So those are what's going against them. Now, what's going for them is the hacks and everything else they have going there. And I think they're trying to give a more realistic depiction of what it might be like. So that's what they have against them, and that's what they have for them. They have the hacks, and they have all that other stuff. Now, in the actual game, when you're actually logged in Pantheon Rise of Fallen, the game's actually out, everything's cool. Dungeons are going to be a little bit different, because there's going to be a bunch of camps in the dungeons, and you're going to run in there, and you're going to look for a camp. You're going to be like, hey, anybody need whatever you are? And they'll be like, yeah, and you're going to cast like invisibility on yourself, or you're going to cast a spell on yourself, or hide and sneak, or whatever, and get to that group. And if you can't cast the spells on yourself, you're going to ask somebody else, hey, can you hit me up with a spell? Thanks, bro. Or thanks, young lady. You know, whatever you do. And that's really going to get you to your group really quicker, and then you're going to get engaged much faster. And then when you disengage, you're going to do the same thing, or you're going to gate out, or however you do it, you're going to be ported. That's just that's probably what you're going to do at that level of play. So I think that's what they're considering when they say 2 hours playtime, being able to do something as accomplish something. Now, like I said, I was thinking about this, or maybe I didn't say that, but I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think these kind of games are the kind of games where you can jump in for 30 minutes and you might get nothing accomplished, and it's kind of fun. You know, you can go farm something or whatever. You can do whatever makes sense for your time frame of playing. And the cool thing is, though, is when you take a step out and you take a step into these games, it's not like you're trying to accomplish things so much as just jumping into a world and existing in it for 30 minutes or 2 hours and then having fun. And that's a really cool thing I think a lot of MMOs have lost, and I think that's what they're trying to recapture with Pantheon, is not so much making you feel like you need to jump in and feel accomplished for what you've done, but jump in and enjoy your time there no matter what you're doing, even if that's sitting in town in a tavern going, I can't find a group, man, this sucks, you know, and you're talking to some guy, and then you hit it up and you're like, oh, we're buddies now, and then you go off on an adventure, and you know, whatever happens. But I think that's what really their goal is here. But I truly think they are trying to shoot for that 2 hours time frame to at least accomplish something, get engaged in a group, get engaged in an activity, whatever it might be. So next up, Fragile has a question for me, but I'm going to slightly modify his question because I feel like the need is there to modify it. But anyways, he's heard that, you know, the need for grouping is real in Pantheon from some people. Do you think they will scale things down to allow people to solo play up to level 5 or so, just to get a few skills and levels under your belt? So Brad's mentioned that he likes it to be very difficult at the get-go. So especially for the pre-alpha players and the alpha and beta players, the game's going to be rather scaled to be very challenging or difficult to get anything done. And then he's going to scale it back depending on the feedback and try to just tweak it just right. And it's easier, they've mentioned, at least the development teams mentioned multiple times, it's easier if it's tuned very difficult and then they can ramp it back and make it easier versus it being very easy and then making it more difficult. Because it's hard to say like, oh my gosh, we kill this thing in one hit versus we kill this thing or we can't kill this thing and we die, like, you know, when it's at 2% every time, we feel like we're doing our best job ever. And then you can just like dial it back a little bit and then they win. And then that makes that thing passable, or they get over that hurdle, versus if it's super easy and you're constantly making these adjustments, okay, and it takes forever to adjust things versus the other way. I think that's the thinking behind that. So I would expect it to get much easier in solo to level 5, super likely, depending on your race and class, super likely. Hopefully. I think it'll be totally doable. Maybe not. Maybe it won't. But yeah, I mean, it probably will be, but it might not be super efficient. Again, grouping in this game is always going to be a better thing, and it's probably going to be very early on that grouping benefits you. Probably 3, 4, 5 is going to start benefiting you to group or duo, things like that. But you'll definitely be able to solo up to 5, most likely. So Fragile's asking, his next question is something we've spoken on before, and that's the pre-order statuses. If you get the different types of pledges, you get 2 copies of the game. And the deal is it's perfect if you're 2-boxing or if you're boxing the game, works out great. But if you're going to be sharing your copy with somebody else, you know, you and your spouse or you and a friend or whatever, it kind of sucks because you get pigeonholed into playing a race combination that you guys can get to each other as in the world. Especially when you're playing this game for the first time, it's going to be rather challenging to make a different race and then try to get over to your buddy's town. So the idea is that Fragile's mentioning is to get an item that ports the 2 accounts you get for pledging, get those people to port to each other. So we've talked about this before, so I'm only going to cover it really quickly, but basically getting an item that ports 2 accounts to each other is kind of broken in the sense of what Pantheon's looking to do. It is super kind of annoying to deal with this, but keep in mind that when you pledge to them, it's not in the sense that those 2 accounts are linked, you just get 2 copies of the game. That's just what they give you as, hey, here, have 2 copies, man. Share one with your buddy. And I think that's kind of a gimmick too, not really a gimmick, but it's a way for them to get more of their product out there at release. You know, everybody's gonna have 2 copies that pledged, so there's gonna be that more people in the world, and it's financially reasonable for them. So that's just the way I think they're gonna be looking at it. I don't think they're gonna be making any item. Also, they wanted everybody to start off on the same footing, so everybody that buys the game just for themselves or pre-orders it, they're not going to have this weird item, or whoever didn't pledge and stuff like that and get these 2 copies. They're not going to have this item, and they want everybody to start on the same foot. And the only way to do that is to not give us this item for those accounts. So I brought this up in my other video, and one idea that I mentioned was whoever's going to be playing more, because usually that's the case, they make an alt character, they level up with the other guy until you guys get to both like level 10 or something. So as you level up, you can eventually get out to the point where you go into the world and meet each other and say, hey, adventurer, you've been playing with my alt, haven't you? Alright, so with that, guys, I think I'm going to call it there. I know this one's a little bit shorter, but any other points that I can get into right now are kind of lengthy, and I really wanted to spend the time on them. One big one is Fragile really redirected his question to me about combat that I spoke on last episode, and wanted me to go more depth on those as far as the skills, abilities, mechanics for the classes, and really get my thoughts on a lot of the, basically how the mechanics play out in the game and how combat works. So I think I'm going to go really far into depth in that as far as like colored mana, how the abilities play out, some of the cooldowns, what to expect in a group, or see in the actual combat state of play, like what do you expect a wizard to be doing? Is he going to be sitting there on his butt the whole time getting mana? That kind of stuff. So look to see that one next time, but for now we're going to call it here. If you guys liked what you saw, consider liking and subscribing to see any future content that I release. If you have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments below and I will address them as duly as can. And with that, guys, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you again really soon.